3 when I called you up, said I need you now, cause I'm losing patience. By 4 you were knocking on my door. I said love is a two-way road, he don't care no more, am I going crazy? Needed you just to help forget it all. And it was easy, you put the records on to replay, danced till we couldn't see straight, till the morning came along. Don't need the weekend, we don't wait until the evening, we don't need to find a reason to turn it up and sing along, cause that's what friends are for.
All right. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in this beautiful, awakening, transformative planet of ours. This is Metaphysical Mocha Mondays here on the Intuitive Prospector page. Good morning to you. I always say good morning because I'm in Seattle, Washington, so we're just getting the day started off here a little past 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, but you may be in other parts of the world, so that's why I always say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, because we have a global audience. So how is everybody doing this Monday morning as we approach the end of January, getting ready for February? It's just amazing how fast the time goes, doesn't it? It's just, it's just time is just so moving. It feels like light speed, doesn't it? So let me get over to the page here, make sure that we're broadcasting okay, sound quality is okay. Not going to be on for too long today with the I'm going to do a cafe afterwards. I'm not sure what cafe. I'm thinking of a helpful tip cafe, or maybe a musical cafe, or something where you can get your reading, but also get something a little bit different. So still kind of thinking on it. None of my shows are scripted or planned, but we actually just start philosophizing and conversing through coffee or tea or your protein shake or water, whatever that may be. If you want to learn more about who I am, what I do, my journey, what I always say, my soul adventure, you can visit me at marclainhart.com, or you can internet search the Intuitive Prospector, and you can find me on several professional directories that I'm associated with. You can get on my newsletter. I'm going to be doing some work over on my Patreon page. So if you want to become a Patreon prospector, that's a membership community where we do sound baths, we do meditations, we do inspiration, transformations, healings. I always remind people that I don't heal people, but I open up doors and opportunities for you to search out your own healing, to prospect for whatever your healing may be, because I firmly believe that healing comes from the inside and it's based on your intention. I don't heal people. I don't claim to be a healer. Claim to be an inspirer for sure, But as far as today, I wanted to talk about just a few things to encourage you, to motivate you, to inspire you, to self-empower you, with everything going on in our world. And there's a lot going on in our world. I want to just start today's show. Good morning to my team, by the way. Thank you for being on and supporting me in the work and just setting the vibration and an intention to promote positivity through these platforms, through social media platforms. I might be doing some work over on TikTok later, or you can now follow me over on CLUBHOUSE, and I'm also on Wisdom Radio doing what I call just different conversations, different things on meditation, metaphysics, spirituality, spirituality speaking, inspired living. That's the podcast that I do. So if you want to catch any of those, you can just get all the links, all the information at marclainhart.com, which is probably your best source. But this morning, my message is to talk about persistence, and something that, you guys know, obviously, if you follow my work, you can obviously tell I'm a huge Star Wars fan. The Force, what binds and connects us all, something that's been resonated for almost the 50 years I've been on the planet. I always, people always say, well, why did you choose to incarnate in this time of, eternity? And I said, because of Star Wars. It gave me the opportunity to experience Star Wars and be a part of Star Wars. So real Star Wars nerd. But for those of you that watch the Book of Boba Fett or The Mandalorian, the philosophy behind the movies dates back thousands of years. There's a lot of philosophy based on meditation, insightfulness, mindfulness, baby Grogu, Yoda, the Force. And there was a message that came up that I'm going to share with you today that I think is pretty relevant and to help you on your journey, because that's what this show is about. 30 minutes of inspiration, encouragement, motivation, and finding that diamond within, if you will. So you got your coffee, you got your tea. I got up this morning doing a little meditation, getting ready for today's journey. And I had seen a young girl had jumped to her death, suicide, I believe in New York City. And she was actually very well, she was successful. She was a Miss USA finalist or winner, was a reporter on Extra, and just, in her 30s, and woke up and jumped off a high story building. And that kind of hit home with me because, a couple of years ago, we had a friend, really good friend, very outgoing, very just lovable, and very outgoing, very just lovable, and very life of the party. And one day after work, went to a rooftop bar here in Seattle and jumped off, and it kind of took the wind out of my sail. It just kind of, opens up, and a big part of the work that I do, death and dying, and not to be scared of death, of course, respectful of death, but it still hurts when somebody commits suicide or somebody takes their life. I've had, two family members that have committed suicide, unfortunately, two friends, including her, a couple of, I guess it's been about 3 or 4 years now, 4 years, I believe. But again, it's just an example of how quick time goes by, how fast. But what I like to do is, if anybody is struggling with this pandemic, with this uncertainty of our world, with the chaos, with the social media, with all of the information that is streaming at us, we got a lot of information and stuff coming at us. And this is going to be a real test if our species can survive our technology, if we can evolve and move past our aggressions and our anger and our divide, to see if we can evolve. Because I think this is truly a test being presented to all of us, because we're all connected by news, social media, all this information that is flowing. But the one thing that I always promote is the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. It's 1-800-273-TALK, 1-800-273-8255. Learn the warning signs. It's free, it's confidential, it's always available. Help a loved one, a friend, yourself. There's lots of things in here, suicide warning signs. You can go to the website, which is suicidepreventionlifeline.org. I actually donate to these guys and gals, everyone here associated with this. But I just woke up this morning and read that sad, that somebody who is successful, who's beautiful, has the world at her fingertips, obviously was in a lot of pain, that she wanted just that pain to stop, and unfortunately committed suicide by jumping off a building and testing the laws of gravity, which people always say, oh, gravity is a theory, until you're looking down, then you realize that it's real. But my heart, my condolences goes out to anybody that's been associated with the loss of maybe through COVID, suicide. It's a big part of the work I do with death and dying. But outside of that, what I wanted to talk about this morning was persistence. And when I was watching last week's Book of Boba Fett, which again, if you guys are, Star Wars fans, you may not be, and that's okay. You may be a Trekkie, or maybe you don't like sci-fi at all. But I love the messages that come up, and I love the messages that we receive, whether it's through the outlets of music, whether it's through the outlets of social media, whether it's through the outlets of movies, things that inspire us, things that give us signs and symbols and synergy and synchronistic events based on the information in the symbiotic relation of connecting to the physical world, but knowing that this physical world will morph and transform into something different. Just like when we were born, we were breathing liquid, we come out, we're breathing air. And metaphysically, we know that consciousness and energy always has to move forward, always has to go somewhere. So this morning, the message that was resonating with me was persistence without insight will lead to the same outcome. And that was actually brought up in this last episode of Star Wars. And I thought, you know what, that's a great way to put it. It's the same concept of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over again, and having that expectation of a different outcome. And the way that she presented it was she was fighting with the Mandalorian, and her name is the Armorer, and she's kind of the teacher and the inspirer and the wisdom of his journey. And he's fighting against it, and that's where she says persistence without insight will lead to the same outcome. And I was like, man, that's actually pretty that's a nugget right there. That's as a prospector, I'm always looking for these nuggets, for these pearls of wisdom, if you will. And I was like, that's really the same thing of, it's great to have persistent, be persistent, go after what you want. And you'll notice that when you're persistent about something, you may have roadblocks, you may have barriers, you may have people, you may have financial situations. But with persistence, if there's a mountain standing in front of you, you can, climb that mountain, go over it, or you can dig a tunnel and go under it, or you can, walk around it, take the long way around. You can create something and fly over it. I mean, there's always, where there's a will, there's a way when it comes to persistence. And if you keep running into the same barriers, if you keep running into the same obstacles, or you're in the same patterns with people, then it usually will lead to that same outcome. So where your insight comes into play is persistence without insight will lead to the same outcome. If you want to change your outcome, just like if you want to change the insanity of what's going on in our world, we change that by not doing the same thing over and over again, which we as humans call habits. We're really good at being in our habits, myself included. But when you have persistence is a good thing. But again, you're coming up against these obstacles and barriers and people that say no. When people tell me no, that for me is a next opportunity. I don't let no stand in the way. Whether I'm doing a reading and somebody says, no, that doesn't make sense, and I'm connecting to a spirit person, I say, okay, let me go back and see. Maybe I'm getting in the way of that information. Maybe I'm perceiving it differently. Maybe they're giving it to me where I'm just interpreting the wrong way. But no's for me are next opportunity to keep going. I don't use that as a barrier, and that my persistence, and I'm a very persistent guy, but I use my insight, which is both prayer and meditation, qigong, energy, awareness. Did a real powerful, I'm in a workshop called 45 Days to Awakening, and we did some really powerful awareness exercises this weekend, and it was pretty insightful. It was pretty much aware of just who we are. And when you have persistence and you combine that with insightfulness, whatever insight, maybe it's reading a book, a how-to book, maybe it's setting an intention and having a positive mantra. I do the power of 369, the things that Nikola Tesla talked about mantras. Say it 3 times in the morning, 6 times in the afternoon, 9 times before you go to bed. So the 369, the power of just as a numerology aspect. So there's different things that you can do. You can do a vision board. You can do a mantra. You can do a list of accomplishments of goals. You can do a lot of different things to get insightfulness for what is best for your journey. And so that really just hit home for me. Persistence without insight will lead to the same outcome. And that includes relationships. Sometimes we have to change our relationships. Sometimes we have to tell people, adios or goodbye, and still love them from a distance. That's something that I had to work on these last few years with my own personal relationships and family and friends and people you think are your friends, or, act like they're your friends. And then as soon as you turn around, they stab you in the back. So, that's insightfulness. And when you have that, that intuitiveness, that insightfulness, that psychic ability, your BS meter goes up a lot. You know when people are BSing you. You know when people are backbiting you or just talking, wearing a mask and telling you one thing to your face and doing something. And so that's, it's that your BS meter really becomes tuned in to the things in life and to the people in life. But keep your persistence, use insightfulness, use your intuition, trust your intuition, trust your gut. That's why we teach on the ancient energetic metaphysical ways of interacting with our world, the force, if you will. I mean, it really is a truly living energy. So persistence without insight will lead to the same outcome. That is today's message on Metaphysical Mocha Mondays. I can tell you that, life is rough. Life is changing. Life is transformative. Life is full of joy and pain, uncertainty, death, dying, traumas, tragedies, what I call the TNT that can blow our lives up. And, if I'm just being candid and honest with you, there was a part in my journey where my persistence was not that strong. For those of you that followed my work, that I got into spiritualism, psychic sciences, mediumship, not because I looked at it as a career or anything like that. I had just gone through some very traumatic times where I just was like, what's the point of life? What's the point of going on? And like I said, if you're paying attention, the shows you watch or the interactions you have, there's usually a message there. There's an opportunity for awareness, and there's an opportunity to awaken with everything we do. And I was watching a show that we watched last night, and it talked about she had lost her lover. And so she was mourning in a deep, grieving way. And Sam Elliott, who's in the series, had a conversation with her, and he goes, "I know what you're going through," because he had to bury his daughter from smallpox right after the Civil War. And when you're watching that, and then it kind of hits you, like, what's the point? Why did we go on? Why did that young girl, successful, beautiful young girl, just jump off a building and kill herself? Because people reach a point in their journey where the pain is more than they can bear. It's the pain is more than they can hold. And, if you're persistent like I am, then all of a sudden you have the rug pulled out from underneath you, like I did with my brothers and my father-in-law, all in that same time frame. And then, of course, throw in a near-death experience and an out-of-body experience on top of that. It really changed who I am, but it also changed my persistence. And there was a dark time where I was like, I'm not sure I want to go on. What's the point? My brother was just murdered. My other brother's dying of brain cancer. My father-in-law's, tragically suffering from his multiple sclerosis. I look at my niece who has severe cerebral palsy. I'm like, what's the point? What is all this pain and suffering? And in the episode yesterday, it was a good reminder that there are many reasons to persist and to go on with your life, because there are people that do love you, and there are people still here that love you and care for you. And when you live your life, when you have what I call those soul adventures, they get to experience your life through your eyes. And that's how it was presented yesterday in that commentary. And I was like, wow, that's, that makes sense, that we're living for those that are no longer living, but we're also, I always say, getting older. As I'm about to hit my 50s here and start that next decade of my 50s, I was like, you know what, that's, it's a privilege to get older, because it's a privilege denied to many, including my brother, who was only 21 when he was murdered. And when you hear that from a different perspective, it makes you think, it makes you get kind of be inspired to keep persistent, to keep pushing forward, even though life is going to continue to throw stuff at you, and relationships and opinions and judgments and cynics and critics and social media, rants. And it's like, if you can look past that, if you can look past the drama, that's really part of awakening. And Eckhart Tolle talked about this, when we can look past the drama, or the drama doesn't impact you anymore, that's really, you've really awakened to something bigger than yourself. So for this morning, over a cup of our coffee and a cup of our tea, I hope that you regain your persistence. My hope is that you stay persistent in life, but you have insightfulness, you have intuition, and you use that insight to change so the outcome changes. Because again, it really is the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. And I I feel with my journey, there was a lot that I was doing, caught up in the same, the lesson repeats until it completes, and what we resist persist type of energy as far as intentions. And I had to change a lot of that. And it was uncomfortable for me because it's not something that I was used to doing. I wasn't used to being on, doing a podcast talking about mediumship or psychic, or coming on here over a cup of coffee to talk about metaphysics and spiritualism and death and dying and grieving. And but over time, through persistence and insightfulness and good teachers and mentors along the way, it's really helped me to see a more broader perspective of life, our earth, my journey here, why I'm here with the time that I have left, and really being persistent. I always go back to, if you've ever seen Alexander Hamilton, I feel like kind of like him, and then I'm writing like I'm running out of time. So, I do these shows to, leave a ripple effect, to leave a message for those that follow, that are maybe having the same questions, the same awakenings. And awakenings isn't, usually all filled with joy and sunshine. Awakening is transformative, and finding that diamond within. It's like literally when you pull a diamond out of the dirt, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of darkness. It's a lot of dirtiness. But once you're prospecting, you pull that diamond out, that diamond has a lot to offer people. The beauty, the rarity, the sparkle within that diamond. And that diamond was created with severe pressure. So if there's no pressures and darkness, there's no diamond. And we're a lot of the same way, that through pressures of life, through the uncertainties of life, through the traumas of life, it molds us, it shapes us, it creates us. The question becomes, do we stay persistent with our journey, or do we give up? And, I do watch suicide rates, which is a direct reflection of society. They're skyrocketing among all ages, which is sad to see. But at the same time, it tells me that there are people that are persistent, but just haven't found that insightfulness or that intuition to trust to make a change, to have a different outcome, staying in the same relationship. For example, if you're in a relationship, and, I work with a lot of clients based on relationships, to be honest with you. And, I always say, they told me, I'm sorry. They keep saying, I'm sorry. But the behavior doesn't change. And so when an apology without changed behavior is a form of manipulation from a psychology standpoint. So if you're in a pattern where you're like, I need to stop this pattern of this relationship, and, say, I accept your apology, I forgive you for what's happened, but the behavior needs to change. And if it doesn't, then I'm going in a different direction. And remember, once you identify manipulation, once manipulation stops, usually there's a form of rejection from a psychology standpoint that will take place. Action, reaction, manipulation, awareness to manipulation, rejection. There's a lot of narcissists in our society. I believe that we've created, through our social media, through our news, through our fame, through our, putting people up on pedestals. We've created a lot of that vanity, a lot of that fame that creates, power and wealth and narcissism, and to take advantage of other people. And we're seeing a lot of that. But this year is the year of hope. This is the year of the Master Builder in 2022 from a numerology standpoint. And there's going to be some big transformations that are coming through. My latest article is out here. If you go to marclainhart.com, the latest article is out on both Ariel, Spiritual Community, and Westside Seattle, that I write for all Ariel, Westside, and Home Times magazine. So the latest article is out based on the Master Builder year, the 22, the year of hope, the year of transformations. I still see a great coming together. I'm hoping that will not be some sort of big natural disaster that brings people together. I don't want to ever see that. But at the same time, there's a lot going on with our planet. Our planet is letting us know that the planet is changing. Some, call it, climate change. Some call it global warming. Everybody has an opinion, when it comes to free speech, and it's just, there's a lot going on in our world. So I hope that you just take today to appreciate what you have, to find an attitude for gratitude. I know that's really benefited me in my journey when I felt like I couldn't be persistent, or what's the point of being persistent, is to find gratitude and know that there are people here that still love you and still, think about you. And even though you may not be connected, they're on your heart. That's something, when my persistence back in the day was really hard to keep going, keep moving forward in life. It's good to have those perspectives. Now, as I've gotten older, I realize I have probably more people on the other side, on the spiritual side, than I do in the physical world. But at the same time, it's all community, whether it's physical or etheric or spiritual, whatever your belief systems are. And you're either here or you're there. So right now we're here, so you might as well enjoy here. Stay persistent, go after those things that you want to experience in life, things that you want to give up in life. Life is short. I always tell you, dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live, and discover that diamond within. And persistence is a good thing, but apply your insightfulness and your intuition into that journey, into your soul adventure, and that will change the outcome for wherever it is that you're going. So that's the message for today. We'll get ready for the cafe. I think I might do like a helpful tips or crystal cafe, something different. Just do a few readings, a few connections. So if you want to join me, please make sure to, let me put that link over real quick. I'm doing my Patreon. I have my first Patreon, so I'm going to give her a shout out. The Patreon is something where I'm doing where it's exclusive to you. It's the link is off my website. I've gone ahead and put in, let me just get that Patreon. Just look for Marc Lainhart on Patreon, and there's different memberships monthly that you can join, and they're all based on crystals. So it's my community, and it's where I'm going to be doing more classes, sound baths, meditations, spiritual readings, what else? Personal numerology readings, different shout outs for behind the scenes on the podcast coming up. And the only way you can get to it is to join the Patreon community. So I have my first Patreon, and I wanted just to give her a shout out because that's part of being on the Patreon community. I'm not sure if she's following today's show, but she has joined as a Patreon prospector, and I'm just waiting for my page to, her name is Kirsty Chandler. So Kirsty, thanks for being one of my first patrons. She's the current tier she's done is the Muscovite journey. For each month we get different things, so I wanted to give her just a shout out and say thank you for joining the Patreon community. I put the link down below in the comment section if you want to join. It's a great way to get into some meditation, some awareness, some mindfulness, some metaphysical. It won't be broadcasted through any of my channels on YouTube or Facebook or Clubhouse or TikTok. It is strictly a Patreon community of Patreon prospectors, and having more one-on-one with me and doing some fun stuff over there. So again, cool sound baths. This is the 432 hertz frequency, which is about healing. We do a lot of fun stuff over in there. But again, in order to get there, you have to join the community. So I hope that you'll join me over there, and I hope that you'll be persistent with your journey, that you'll be persistent in following my work and my journey, because my job is to inspire you, encourage you, motivate you, self-empower you to find that diamond within and not to give up, because we have to have hope. And I truly believe a big part of the reason that I'm here today talking to you, whatever platform or venue, whether it's podcast, whether it's podcast or social media, it's because of the journey I've had and the inspiration and the sorrow and the grief and the traumas and the tragedies that can still help us to move forward and to not give up and to stay persistent and use that insightfulness to have a different outcome. So again, today's message as we wind down is persistence without insight will lead to the same outcome. So change your insight, change your intuition, go within. The only way out is in or through. And I promise you that you will, you'll discover that diamond within. So I'll get ready for the cafe. I'll see you here in just a few minutes. Make sure to like the page, subscribe to the Facebook page, Intuitive Prospector, or my other outlets, so you can follow when I'm live or when I'm taking readings or booking readings. I think that's all I have for you today. So persistence, and use that insight along the way, and the journey changes for you, and so does a soul adventure. So until our next soul adventure together, be kind, be caring, be compassionate, and most importantly, dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live, and discover that diamond within. I'll see you next time here on Metaphysical Mocha Mondays. Namaste.
I made it pretty far, all things considered. Thanks for your applause. Still
every time I close the door and another won't open, I get this panic that my life is now on pause. The dark gets cleared, the board's been cleaned, there's nothing left on my screen. The plate is empty, so it seems. Now is the time to ask, okay, what's next? This was fun while it lasted, nothing comes till you ask it. So I'd really like to know what's next. Around the corner, down the street, whatever's meant for me to meet, I'm waiting for it anxiously, so tell me please, what's next?
One planet, 7.3 billion people, only one you. Life offers us many opportunities and learning experiences. Are you ready to explore and discover this beautiful planet, the life and energy all around us, the spiritual world, and what is unseen, along with your own personal soul adventure? Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, is the spiritual connection you have been prospecting for. Internationally known as a tested and professional clairvoyant medium and spiritual advisor, Marc's work as a metaphysical teacher, medical instructor, radio show host, inspirational writer, and hiking guide are here to help you on a journey of self-discovery, healing, inspiration, education, and a whole lot of spiritual awesomeness. Dare to dream. Dare to explore. Dare to live. For more information on Marc's spiritual practice in Seattle, Washington, please visit marclainhart.com or internet search The Intuitive Prospector.